The silence is the loudest thing in the basement. You're sitting in the dark, clutching a flashlight you're afraid to turn on, listening to the sound of a city that used to house 3 million people. Now, the only noise is the settling of dust and the occasional metallic skittering on the pavement above. You wonder how it happened so fast. How did the most dominant species on the planet go from ordering latte deliveries to the bottom of the food chain in less than a month? To understand the end, we have to look at the beginning. Cut back to day 0. It starts with a meteorite impact in a rural recovery zone, but when the hazmat teams arrive, they don't find a solid rock core. They find a geode structure filled with biological specimens, leathery, ovoid, and reactive to thermal changes. The team assumes they're dormant spores. They are wrong. This brings us to the ultimate survival question. Could modern Earth's 8 billion people actually defeat an organism designed by evolution purely for killing? We aren't looking at a movie script where the hero wins because of plot armor. We're looking at a logistical breakdown of transmission rates, crowd psychology, and military response times. It starts not with an invasion fleet, but with a simple curiosity in a containment lab. Biological incubation and local failure. Day 1 begins with a news ticker at the bottom of your screen. You're drinking coffee, watching a report about a biological hazard at the Meteorite Recovery Lab. The anchor mentions a quarantine breach, but her voice is calm. You ignore it, assuming it's just standard protocol or a gas leak. In reality, the first domino has already fallen. Let's break down the biology of the vector. The facehugger is a terrifyingly efficient delivery system, but it has a weakness. It is a macroparasite. Unlike a virus like influenza or COVID-19, which can infect thousands through the air in an hour, the xenomorph life cycle requires a physical one-to-one interaction. It needs a macro host. This physical limitation should make containment easy. If you see a spider the size of a dinner plate, you shoot it. But the organism relies on stealth and speed, not brute force, at least not yet. The real danger during these first 48 hours is the gestation blind spot. After the initial implantation, the facehugger detaches and dies. The host, patient 0, wakes up. They feel fine. In fact, they feel hungry. This is the Trojan horse effect. The medical staff, seeing normal vitals in a conscious patient, move patient 0 from the high-security bio-isolation wing to a general observation ward. They think the crisis is over. They have just moved a biological bomb into a room filled with soft targets. Then comes the chest-burster event. In the movies, this is dramatic. In a real hospital, it's a tactical nightmare. The creature emerges, small and vulnerable, but incredibly fast. It scuttles into the ventilation system before anyone can process the trauma. Here is where human biology fails us. We panic. The hospital goes into lockdown, sealing the doors. This traps the doctors and patients inside with the creature. Within hours, that small creature molts. It sheds its skin, growing rapidly by consuming biomass, medical waste, food supplies, or stray animals. By the time hospital security responds to the screams in the basement, they ain't facing a worm, they're facing a 7-foot drone. Standard police units arrive on day 2. They're trained for human threats. When a police officer fires a taser or a standard 9mm round at the creature, 2 things happen. First, the creature's exoskeleton deflects or absorbs the minor damage. Second, if they do manage to pierce the skin, the pressurized acid blood sprays out. In a confined hospital hallway, shooting the alien means melting through the floor and killing the hostages you're trying to save. The hive dynamic accelerates the collapse. A single drone doesn't just kill, it secures the area. According to the egg morphing theory seen in extended lore, a single isolated drone can break down biological material to create new eggs, even without a queen. By day 3, the hospital isn't just a crime scene, it's a forward operating base. Back in your living room, the tone of the news has changed. The sirens aren't stopping. You look out the window and see a convoy of police cruisers speeding down the highway. But they aren't going toward the city center, they're speeding away from it. You realize the hazmat situation is moving toward the suburbs. By the time the local police realize their bullets don't work, the math is already against them. The panic curve and evacuation protocol. Day 4 is when the buzzing starts. That jarring, dissonant tone of the emergency alert system triggers on every device in your house simultaneously. The message is simple: mandatory evacuation. The containment zone has failed. You have exactly 10 minutes to decide your fate. Do you join the millions of people flooding the interstate? Or do you barricade your doors and pray? Statistically, 90% of the population chooses the highway, and statistically, that is where they die. Let's break down the failure of the urban evacuation protocol. Our cities are designed for rhythmic traffic flow, not simultaneous exodus. When 3 million people try to leave a city through 4 main arteries, the result isn't movement, it's a parking lot. In a zombie apocalypse, a traffic jam is dangerous because you are trapped. In a xenomorph invasion, a traffic jam is a stationary buffet. The tactical advantage of the xenomorph is its 3-dimensional movement. While the military sets up roadblocks and checkpoints on the asphalt, the organisms are moving along the X and Y axes that we ignore. They traverse retaining walls, bridge understructures, and rooftops. They don't need to break through the blockade, they simply climb over it. The gridlock provides them with a high density of hosts who are trapped in metal boxes, unable to run, unable to hide, and perfectly spaced for harvest. But the surface is only the visible part of the nightmare. The real invasion is happening beneath your feet. Modern infrastructure is accidentally designed to be the perfect xenomorph habitat. We've built thousands of miles of steam tunnels, storm drains, and subway lines that connect every major population center. To a xenomorph, a subway tunnel isn't transportation. It is a climate-controlled, lightless superhighway that leads directly into the basements of safe zones. While the National Guard is watching the bridges, the hive is expanding through the sewers. This allows them to bypass the military perimeter entirely, surfacing behind the front lines to strike at hospitals and shelters that were supposed to be secure. By day 6, the first responder network collapses. We see the failure of SWAT tactics in real time. Police units are trained for close quarters battle against human targets. The doctrine relies on corner clearing and center mass shooting. Against a xenomorph, this is suicide. Consider the structural integrity of an apartment complex during a firefight. A SWAT team corners a drone on a 4th floor. They open fire. The bullets penetrate the exoskeleton, releasing the pressurized molecular acid that acts as the creature's blood. This acid doesn't just burn skin, it eats through concrete and steel. The floor dissolves the acid, and the creature drops to the 3rd floor, then the 2nd. The structural supports weaken. You aren't just killing the monster, you're melting the building from the inside out. Every engagement in a residential zone results in catastrophic collateral damage. You realize this as you watch the smoke rising from the city center. You decide not to run. You turn off the lights. You tape heavy blankets over the windows to block your thermal signature. You fill the bathtub with water. You sit in the hallway with a baseball bat, knowing it's useless, but needing the weight in your hands. That's when you hear it. Not a siren, not a scream. It's the sound of the vent cover in your laundry room slowly being unscrewed from the inside. The local government has fallen. Now, the federal government wakes up. Adaptation and the chemistry of survival. By day 8, the electrical grid is dead. The water pressure's gone. You survived the initial nights, perhaps by luck, or perhaps the hive was busy harvesting the highway gridlock. But now your pantry's empty. Hunger eventually overrides terror. You wrap thick magazines around your forearms as makeshift armor, duct taping them tight, and step outside. The suburbs are unrecognizable. The silence has been replaced by a low, constant, resonant hum coming from the sewer grates. You are entering a contested zone to find food. You look at the baseball bat in your hand and realize it's worse than useless, it's a liability. In a melee engagement with a xenomorph, blunt force trauma is a death sentence for the attacker. Smashing a pressurized chitinous carapace causes a rupture of molecular acid. If you hit it close enough to hurt it, you dissolve in the splashback. You drop the bat and grab a can of hairspray and a lighter. This is the chemistry of survival. Xenomorphs are apex predators, but they are still biological entities. They share a primal, deep-seated fear of fire, common to almost all carbon-based life. It's the only thing that makes them hesitate long enough for you to run. While you scavenge for canned goods in a looted convenience store, the National Guard finally establishes a presence. But they're making a fatal strategic error. They're treating this like a human insurgency rather than a biological infestation. They set up sandbag checkpoints and establish linear fields of fire. They expect the enemy to charge across the street or engage in a firefight, but the xenomorphs don't care about territory. They care about biomass. To them, the soldiers standing behind those sandbags are just high-calorie meals wrapped in Kevlar. The static defense lines become feeding troughs. The failure leads to the darkest shift in the timeline. The government moves from rescue protocols to containment protocols. High Command realizes that for every civilian they try to extract, they lose a squad of trained soldiers and risk spreading the infection behind the lines. The logistical math doesn't work. You watch a military transport truck drive right past a family waving desperately from a rooftop. The truck doesn't stop. They aren't here to save you anymore. They're here to draw a hard line on a map that the infection cannot cross, regardless of who is left on the wrong side. Even our technological superiority backfires. The modern military relies heavily on drone surveillance and thermal optics to spot enemies at night. However, xenomorphs are widely theorized to be ectothermic, cold-blooded, or possess the ability to regulate their body heat to match the ambient temperature of their environment. On a thermal scope, they are effectively ghosts. A drone pilot looking at a dark street sees nothing but cold concrete and abandoned cars, right until the moment the squad on the ground stops reporting in. The advanced sensor technology that dominates modern battlefields is rendered useless by simple evolutionary biological camouflage. You witness the result of this blindness firsthand. You hide behind a dumpster as an M1 Abrams tank rumbles down Main Street. It's the pinnacle of land warfare, invulnerable to small arms. Suddenly, it halts. Not because of an anti-tank missile, but because a drone has jammed itself into the drive sprockets, stripping the gears. Then, 3 more drop from the overpass directly onto the turret. They don't try to penetrate the depleted uranium armor, they swarm the hatches. You watch the tank commander try to seal the lid, but he's a half-second too slow. The screams over the external speakers are cut short as the vehicle goes dark. You realize you are truly on your own. The sun sets on a dying world, but just when extinction looks guaranteed, humanity plays its ace card. Section 4, Days 15 plus. The hammer drops. Day 15 starts with a sound you haven't heard in weeks, the scream of jet engines. You look up, expecting the blinding flash of nuclear fire, but instead, you see the contrails of precision munitions. This is humanity's ace card. For all their biological perfection, the xenomorphs are strictly a ground-based threat. They have no surface-to-air capability, no radar, no long-range ballistics. The moment the military stops trying to save the city infrastructure and commits to destroying the infestation, the dynamic flips. We have satellites and comms. They have instinct. We have orbit. They have claws. The scorched-earth protocol begins. Remember those sewer highways the Hive used to bypass the quarantine lines? The Air Force drops bunker-busting GBU-28s designed to penetrate deep Earth before detonating. They don't hurt the drones individually. They collapse the tunnel networks entirely, burying the Hive under millions of tons of concrete and rebar. The underground advantage turns into a tomb. It sounds like thunder rolling from beneath the earth. The vibrations shake the dust from your basement ceiling, a signal that the counteroffensive has begun. You watch the skyline burn. realizing the strikes are cutting off the hive's expansion routes. On the surface, the strategy shifts from kinetic engagement to chemical warfare. Since the creatures bleed acid, bullets are messy and damage the environment. Instead, the military deploys heavy aerosolized nerve agents and caustic defoliants that attack biological respiratory systems without triggering the acid splash. It's brutal, and it kills every living thing in the zone. Stray dogs, rats, and unevacuated civilians hiding in basements. But it stops the spread. The government accepts the collateral damage as the price of survival. They stop sending infantry into buildings to clear rooms, a tactic that favored the alien, and start leveling the buildings instead. The numbers game finally tilts in our favor. The xenomorph reproductive cycle is fast, but our industrial capacity is faster. We have billions of bullets. Once the initial shock of the unknown wears off, professional discipline returns. A xenomorph is terrifying in a dark corridor, but in an open field, against a mechanized infantry division with thermal masking and air support, it's just biology. They use high-caliber rounds designed to shatter exoskeletons at range. And eventually, biology breaks. The soldiers aren't panicking anymore. They are methodically exterminating. They form overlapping fields of fire that nothing biological can cross. The rescue teams that eventually cut through your door aren't the police. They are hazmat cleanup crews wielding flamethrowers. They check your eyes, check your skin for implantation marks, and move you out. They don't speak. They're there to sanitize the zone. The invasion is contained, not by heroism, but by the cold willingness to sacrifice major metropolitan centers to save the species. The monsters are dead, but the world they left behind is changed forever. The new normal. You walk out of the ruins into a processing camp. Behind you, a massive quarantine wall is already being constructed around what used to be your home. We survived because we are adaptable, but we lost our innocence. The government didn't save us out of kindness. They saved us through cold calculation. Could you have survived the first 48 hours? Let us know your strategy in the comments and subscribe for more survival scenarios.